Influencing popular culture, politics, and everything in between. The local station takes you ringside as we discuss the crazy world that is professional wrestling. This is Going Ringside with The Local Station.
Hey, I'm Scott Johnson. Welcome to a special on-location episode of Going Ringside. Doing this on location out of the studio at my house because I've got a special guest here, but I am currently out of the office right now for a little while. So I needed to still bring this to you because we have a massively great guest. We're talking Quinton Rampage Jackson, maybe the most entertaining fighter in UFC history. So we need to talk about it because he is part of the Border Brawl. What is the Border Brawl, you ask? So it is this event being put on in part by TNA Wrestling and Zonify up at Niagara, right at the U.S.-Canadian border, to try to have a throwdown between Canada and the U.S. They even invited the president of both the United States, President Trump, and the new Prime Minister of Canada to be there. Don't know if they'll show up, but you never know. It is May 25th. And let's put this on the screen right now. I want to show you what it is. So it's at the Niagara Falls Convention Center, streamed exclusively on Zonify. So if you're not familiar with Zonify, it's available on Roku, Fire TV, Google Android, all these ones on your screen. Comcast, Xfinity TV, Cox Contour TV, Rogers Xfinity TV, Videotron Helix TV, Buckley, MaxAlf TV, smart TVs, mobile devices, also on the web. They're going to have some big wrestling stars there. So Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Kelly, the Mountie, Canada's finest. So it's kind of a wrestling event put on in part by TNA. And a guy who was in TNA at one point was Rampage Jackson. But Rampage, of course, known for a lot more than just his time in wrestling. That is a small footnote in what has been an iconic career in UFC and even the movies. Rampage will be there as an enforcer. And with Rampage there, you don't know what's going to happen. So we're going to talk to Rampage here in a moment. Right after that, friend of the show and my co-anchor down here at Channel 4 in Jacksonville, John Acebus, will be here to talk a little about Rampage. But you want to hear what Rampage has to say maybe about dream fights? Specifically about one that he's about to tell you. So let's talk about it. Here is maybe the most entertaining fighter in history. Here is Quinton Rampage Jackson. Well, we're excited to be joined on the show today by Quinton Rampage Jackson. Rampage, thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
Rampage, this is a big deal you guys have going on, this Border Brawl on the 25th. Big kind of Canadian versus U.S. event.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be huge.
How did they get you into this? How did you get involved here?
You don't want me to be honest about that. So, don't worry about it. I'm involved.
Okay. I do want you to be honest about anything.
You want me to be honest about everything? Well, hey, if there's a brawl going on, I want to be involved.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about maybe some brawls that maybe a dream fight for you. That was one thing we were talking about as we were prepping for this interview. Any dream fights you would ever have? Anyone living or dead? Who and why? Is there anyone you always thought would be perfect to get in the octagon, the ring, whatever with?
Well, I know it's kind of cheesy now to even say this, but, if I'm going to be honest, ever since Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson, I kind of wanted to knock Jake Paul out. He's been beating up MMA legends, and now he's moved over to boxing legends, and I just don't think it's fair. Mike Tyson a little bit too old to be in there fighting young kids,
Was that annoying for you to have to watch Tyson in that fight with Jake Paul like that?
Yeah, that was real annoying. That was real annoying. The most annoying part was seeing Mike Tyson's ass, but other than that, I wasn't excited about seeing Jake Paul take out a legend.
I got to go back a bit because I'm a huge fan of something you did many, many years ago when you were in the A-Team movie. I went and saw that immediately. How did that come about? And did you talk to Mr. T at all? Or can you talk about how you got involved in that?
I had started acting like a few years prior to that, and I was with this agency, and they asked me any passion projects, and I said, if they ever make an 18 movie, sign me up. I want to get in. And then John Singleton was was supposed to be the director, and him and I, we had a few meetings and stuff like that, and I talked to him, and he was like, "Man, you're perfect for this role, but you need to learn how to act." So I started learning how to act, and the only way I got that role is because I kind of had some inside info that they was looking for a new B.A. Baracus, not a new Mr. T. So when I auditioned, John Singleton was no longer attached to the movie. I came in, auditioned, and I auditioned as B.A. Baracus, and everybody else auditioned dressed up and acted like Mr. T. So I think that's how I got that role, because every Black actor, athlete, everybody wanted that role. But I think I was the only one that knew exactly what they were looking for. And I never met Mr. T, never met him. I always wanted to.
You were a fan as a young person?
Oh, I grew up, I was his biggest fan.
I want to ask you about a guy who's still in the news, who you've got a history with back in the day, and get your opinion on him right now. John Jones, still at the top of the fight game. There's been some talk that he's not wanting to fight Tom Aspinall right now. Your thoughts on that? Do you think he's negotiating, delaying? Thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of felt like he was negotiating. John Jones told me personally after his last fight that he wanted to retire. Father Time is undefeated. I fought John Jones when I was on my way out, and he was a young kid. And so I think it's unfair what he's doing, but I didn't have a legacy like his. His legacy was to be undefeated. My legacy was to be the most entertaining. So I feel like he has more to risk than what I did. So I kind of understand. So he said he wants the big bucks, and I can't get mad at him for that.
I've been looking at some of your clips lately, their old stuff, with you and Ariel Helwani. Some of my favorite interviews of you dealing with an interviewer. Was there heat there? Is there heat there?
Well, sometimes Ariel Helwani is hit or miss. So, but he's a very funny guy, and the best thing about Ariel Helwani interviews, he never gets me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So he always gets the best part of Rampage.
Got it. Such a history with you and Rashad Evans. Will there ever be a second chapter after the boxing match was canceled?
Well, we still want to box each other, so who knows? I was really looking forward to fighting him, and I got in great shape. Yeah, I just want to get my first boxing match in the history books, and I was really disappointed when that fight fell through.
Now, this border brawl is put on in part by TNA Wrestling, which you actually have a history with. You went into the wrestling world for a while. While you were there, were there any wrestlers, I know you dealt with Kurt Angle, of course, who you thought could have held their own in the octagon?
Oh yeah, it was a few guys, but I tell you what, Samoa Joe, I bet you that kid can fight.
Do you think Samoa Joe would have done some damage in the octagon or a ring?
100%.
I want to ask you about your fights against Silva. He was one of your biggest rivals. You had some MMA fans would look over at your wins over Chuck Liddell and think it's him. But is it Silva? I mean, who would you say is your biggest rival?
Yeah, Vanderlei Silva for sure. We fought each other 4 times.
What was your fight that you remember most with him? Bellator, Pride, UFC?
I remember every last bit of every last one.
And in general, what are you up to in life now? I know you're obviously doing this. Kind of what's going on with you?
I'm just doing fun stuff. I do an MMA podcast with my co-host Barrett DeGidio at Jackson, and I work a lot with Harrison Rogers here in Arizona. With he's putting together, he's brought together a great MMA league where you have teams, UFL, and he helped formulate and come up with a healthier option in energy drinks with F3 Energy, and he has a podcast as well. I work with him, and I do live streaming. I love getting to know the fans and stuff like that. So I do live streaming on many platforms.
Oh, Rampage, enjoy yourself at the Border Brawl May 25th. Same. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, don't forget to check it out, 5 p.m.
We'll be there. Thanks, Rampage. Well, we're joined by a colleague of mine, John Acebus, who's a news anchor with me in Jacksonville at Channel 4. But more importantly, John, you're a UFC fight enthusiast. So thanks for joining us on the show today.
Dude, every time you talk about doing this, I get so excited. I love the UFC, been a fan since honestly, just so I can out myself when Masvidal started on his rise, and that's when I just became a huge fan.
Well, you got to talk about maybe the guy who's maybe the most fun to watch in interviews and fighting. We're talking about Rampage Jackson. Just talk to Rampage. Your thoughts on Rampage Jackson as a fighter?
He's just that guy, man. Even he's been around so long. You hear a lot of the UFC fighters talking about the Pride days. Like that was back when it was on its rise, and Rampage was running through. I think he beat Chuck Liddell to become the heavyweight champion. Lost to John Jones, and that's okay because everybody else in the world lost to John Jones too. But Rampage was just that dude, man. When he was on Tough and he was ripping up the doors on the set and had Dana White replacing doors, he was just always, I feel like, authentically himself, and notably with like Ariel Helwani. I'm not even sure I can mention that, but he used to
No, we're
clown that
talking
dude.
about it. We are going to talk about that, but keep going. Yeah,
He used
bring
to
up Ariel
clown
because I
him,
asked
man.
him about that.
Dude, he used to clown Ariel so hard, and I try to put myself in that position if I was Ariel, and I would have chills down my spine, man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I was just watching some of those clips. I'm like, I would not want to be in that position.
Well, you couldn't tell like if he was messing with him or if he was serious, and then it was probably like a little bit of both.
So I want to go back to John Jones. I asked him about the John Jones thing, and he said John Jones' role was to be undefeated. My role was to be the most entertaining of all time. Would you say he arguably can make that claim that he might have been one of the most entertaining fighters ever?
Yeah, and he did it at a time where it was like there wasn't as much social media as there is now. But if there had been some of the same attention, it probably would have resulted in the same way. But in that same way, I feel like Rampage was a real fighter. There's a lot of guys now who like try and make a name real quick, blow up on social media, insult people, and make it big. Rampage really insulted people and meant it. Like he wasn't trying to get clicks. He was just that dude. At least from my opinion, he might tell you differently. But Rampage was equally a fighter as he was entertaining.
So I talked to him a little about his acting background. Are you surprised that of all UFC fighters, he was the one or one of the ones who could really make that crossover into Hollywood and more entertainment?
Not really, because I don't know, man. He just seems like a real dude. Other people have tried it, and I won't name names, but some people like aren't as natural in that role. But I feel like Rampage is just kind of game for whatever. He's like instant entertainment, and you saw that a lot with Ariel Helwani. The dude could he could just land, man.
So right at the top, I asked him dream fights, and he went where I didn't think he would go, but I was not complaining. He went after Jake Paul. He wants
Oh
to
man.
fight Jake Paul, and he was saying, like, why is he going after old man Mike Tyson? Uh, do you think Jake Paul might look for another fighter at some point? We don't know. Do you think Rampage might be a good opportunity there, a good option? Or do you
I
think he
would.
wants to face Rampage?
Did he say he wanted to?
He
Jake
said,
would?
oh, Rampage said he wants Jake Paul. He told me that. He just said that.
I wonder how much traction that'll get. So my first thing with Jake Paul, I'm not trying to be a hater. At first I was because I thought he was gimmicky, but he's actually a real fighter, man. The dude is knocking out guys like Tyrone Woodley and Mike Tyson, definitely older. That didn't feel right to watch, but I think that'd be an awesome fight, man. Because Rampage is going to go in there and throw, and they're the kind of guys that would probably get heated beforehand, but would be total bros like afterwards. That's at least my thoughts. But I would like the matchup.
So Jake Paul fights are all as much about the show as anything, and Rampage is as much about the show as anything. Do you think because I don't want to see Rampage. I don't want to see Jake Paul in a mega fight against someone who's boring. I
Oh
mean,
no,
it's
that
all
wouldn't be
about the
boring.
show with him.
It wouldn't be boring at all. How old is Rampage now? Do you know?
I got to look it up. I don't have it in front of me, but he's been doing it. I mean, I was watching him against John Jones. I say 14 years ago, so that means he's got some years on him compared to some
Yeah.
fights.
He's fought the best of the best, though. I'm pretty sure he fought Michael Bisping. I mean, he's fought the real best of the best. And I bet they're about the same size, too. I don't know. I think that'd be a good fight. And I think a lot of people in the UFC are looking for some redemption moment because nobody's been able to beat Jake Paul.
Well, we'll see. Well, John Acebus with Channel 4 with me down here in Jacksonville. John, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Man, give Rampage my best. I'm a big fan. I love that guy.
I will do that. Thanks, John.
Yes, sir.
So thanks to John, and of course, thanks to Rampage for taking the time to sit down with me and talk about the Border Brawl once again, May 25th, 6 to 9 p.m. Do not miss it. Such a great event, and I hope you have a good time, and I'm rooting for the U.S. I'm a U.S. guy here, but we'll see how that goes. U.S. versus Canada, don't miss it. And thank you for joining us for this special on-location episode of Going Ringside. I'll see you back here in studio next time.
This has been Going Ringside with The Local Station, brought to you every Wednesday on your favorite podcast player, on News4Jax Plus, as well as the News4Jax YouTube channel.